Yo, what's going on, guys? I'm getting over today's trade recap. What I ended up taking today, I ended up taking one trade today, and ended up hitting full take profit on this trade. Right, this is what happens. I guess I was sort of patient today. I really did pick my setup properly and what I wanted to see. And I feel like the trade that I took was kind of just a no-brainer. I'm not gonna lie. I think it was traded today as well. I'm gonna go over a trade that ended up happening on market open, which I just personally don't agree with, and that I know a lot of people took. Now, of course, if you had conviction in this trade and you had your really valid reasons for taking it, then that is completely fine. Just for me personally, I just wasn't a fan of this. So yeah, coming into today, overall, I was leaning pretty bullish short term. So reason why I was leaning bullish short term was simply because if we go to the boom, the daily range here. I think this is going to show it. Oh no, it didn't. Great. We had this unmitigated daily fair value gap, and if we just want to look at the structure and what we've been doing in the overnight session and what we've just been doing in general, is Asia expanded up, London had a little bit of a manipulation leg, and now it looks like New York wants to distribute. And overall, if we just look at what we've been doing, we're simply delivering from sell side. We are respecting bullish PD race, and we are disrespecting bearish, and we are just looking overall bullish. Like, it's not that complicated, just pretty simple stuff, right? So with that in mind, we had some pretty good draws above us as well, being this failure swing, which New York AM session created yesterday, and also this previous day high, which is put in up here, which was also the daily fair value gap as well. Right. So with that in mind, there is a couple scenarios that I was looking at. Scenario one was either that maybe we can make a move lower on open, or resweep the low inside of this key level, and then potentially make a move higher from there. If I did see this though, I would have preferred an SMT for this, simply because we had this unfilled 4-hour at our stop loss, but we did also have an SMT inside of this 4-hour. I think it was like this, if I'm not mistaken. So this was like the SMT inside of the 4-hour. So technically, we didn't essentially have to return to the 4-hour. If we wanted to return to the 4-hour, that's completely fine. But because we have an SMT instead of the 4-hour low key, I probably wouldn't have ended up taking like just a straight long from this unless the structure was A plus. But I would have definitely rathered to wait for like a continuation from here to see if we were going to make a move higher. And yeah, so that was like basically scenario 1 and 2. I didn't really see any bearish scenario. Reason being is because if we look at the S&P 500, during this time, like, it was just super close to this New York AM draw, and I feel like that is exactly what it wanted. It left a failure swing here. Yes, it already had inverse like every single gap within that like a price that could send us lower here. So like with that in mind, I was just, I wasn't a fan at all of, like, if we have a look here, hold on, where's the hourly gap? Like, the hourly gap is, yeah, right here, this tiny, I don't even know if this is hourly gap, but all these hard time frame gaps on the S&P 500 got absolutely blitzed. So yeah, so let's go into market open, which is going to show the trade that a few people ended up taking, and which I will explain like the reasoning behind it. It was definitely not a bad trade, but it is not something I would personally take. And I'm going to go over why I was thinking about taking it, but then overall I decided not to. So market ends up opening higher here, and we end up clearing out. Yep, we end up clearing out this high, and this high was a high inside of an hourly gap on Nasdaq, right? So we had this like, bro, this trade. The more that I look at this trade, the more I feel like it's just trash. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, we came into this 30-minute gap, sure, but it's like, really, are you ever gonna use this 30-minute gap? Like, overall, looking how bullish we are leading up to this obvious draw being the daily unfilled fair value gap and previous day high and New York AM session high, and how we've been treating the higher time frame gaps within this leg price. Like, it's just really, it's not looking good, brev. Like, I don't understand why we want to see this 30-minute or this hourly gap, which we have already fully filled, expect to have a reaction to move us lower here, especially because of how bullish we are. It just, I don't really know. But overall, the concept of this, this was just like kind of a mechanical setup, like PO3, market opens higher, you could expect price lower. And overall, though, a plus point for this is that we definitely had some good targets here. Actually, no, overall, again, I still didn't like the targets. The only good target was this low resistance liquidity, which we had here, right? But then what's past this, right? What's past this liquidity? High resistance. More high resistance. Why is this high resistance? Because we have an SMT instead of a 4-hour gap that is high resistance liquidity that has already sent us higher, right? And we have this here sending us higher, proving that we are bullish and we are making moves higher. So you're just targeting high resistance with this. I guess plus points for the fact that it was low resistance. I guess if you were targeting this, but it's just like, overall, I just don't agree with this setup. I think it's just completely against what we have been doing on the higher time frame. Um, I don't know why there's an SMT on there. And I just didn't like it. But this was the plus points again for this is that it was instantaneous reaction, and we also had an SMT with this range high. But the thing is, like, I don't really like SMTs on market open like this, especially considering that the S&P 500 was quite literally in no man's land, right? It was nowhere. The risk to reward on this trade as well is kind of cooked unless you were targeting the entire low, which would again you would have been just targeting high resistance. You could have got maybe your 1 to 1, I suppose. But this setup ends up getting instantly railed. Like the simple reason I feel is just because like ES first of all clearly wants these draws on liquidity higher, and that's not the daily gap. Did I mark the daily gap out wrong? Oh, I did. I marked. Oh wow, I marked. Oh, what is this? Oh, that's the hourly. Oh yeah. And yeah, like it's just this is just counter trend in my opinion. You're just taking like a counter trend trade with poor, like the structure on this is not bad, but it's just like no, I just don't like this narrative. It's just not. It just wasn't good. You know that feeling when you're like looking at a setup and you're like, will I take this? And then you're like, no, I don't like this. Like this is exactly how I felt when I was looking at this, and it was just missing so many things, and overall it was just completely against like my bias and like that what I was convicted in coming into the market. So yeah, I think this is just kind of mechanical, but when you actually sit back and think for a minute, I mean, if you had your own conviction, then fairs. But if you sit back and think for a minute, like this trade, it was nowhere near A plus, and it really, really wasn't a good trade. But yeah, overall, I think people ended up taking another 30-second right here, thinking price is going to move lower. But like, I also don't get that, because like, bro, we just had a 930 PO3, and like the displacement on this is nasty. And people are like, oh yeah, but a stop hunt, bro. Would you expect like a stop hunt, if we displace like this? Like this is a really, really strong displacing candle. There is absolutely no reason if you're going to be bearish in this sense that this candle isn't going to do the job and carry the momentum to take us lower here. This is like a really, really strong inversion, and it gets instantly railed. And I think people ended up taking another trade here, which is like this 30-second or something, and targeting the exact same things. Overall, this trade, I guess it is slightly better because it has a stop hunt, um, and and better structure in a sense, right? Because we left this failure swing here, but 930, like from my experience as well, just doesn't really do these things. Like it's usually just up and then down, or down and then up. Like when we have the initial like really strong displacement inversion, that's usually what carries us lower. So this was also super sus to me, and again, I just didn't like it. It just wasn't good enough for me. It's just kind of against the higher time frame in my opinion, leading up to this agreed upon DOL being the daily fair value gap. So after this, we ended up just pumping towards the draw on liquidity, and there was really no entry here for us to take to target this. So it is what it is. But now I'm going to be going over the trade that I ended up taking. So we ended up, I think this was 10. So during like 10:15 ish, we were just literally generating liquidity, generating liquidity, generating liquidity, generating liquidity. And then 10:30 opens, and what does it do? Boom, now we have some really clean structure. See, I wasn't completely done for the day because I did like this idea that we were forming. I was going to get off until I seen the amazing structure that we were generating leading up to this now newly agreed upon DOL being the 30-minute fair value gap, right? Now, with this in mind, we had an SMT and a stop hunt inside of a daily fair value gap with literally like A plus 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 low resistance liquidity leading up to that higher time frame DOL being the unmitigated 30-minute. Um, and yeah, overall, again, short-term bullish to the daily gap. But then when we hit the daily gap, I could expect us to then presume to be bearish in this higher time frame sell model that we are currently in. Now, I ended up taking this right here. There was no inversion for a value gap on this trade, but there was a CISD. So I ended up taking this right here. I think my entry was on the next candle, actually. It was like right here, I think it was. And my stop loss being 38 points ish, or no, it was an SMT, so I had it at the high. This is 47 points, and I was targeting. What was it targeting? This 30-minute. Yeah, so my stop loss was at the body. My stop loss was at the body, even though there was an SMT here. This displacement was just super nice in my opinion, and I was just targeting this unfilled 30-minute for value gap with the low resistance liquidity building up to that DOL. Now at this point, there was no break even that was valid in my eyes until ES ended up taking the low first, which I think was right here. Yeah, okay, so my break even actually got edged. Because I think right here at 10:38 ES ended up entering the 30-minute for value gap, so then I felt my stop loss did have a bit of a threat to it, and my break even ended up getting edged with this 1 minute retrace, and then it just flushed to TP. And this trade actually moved like crazy. Like you could have targeted the entire range, I'm pretty sure, with this. Yeah. Oh, you got edged. Oh, that's so tragic. Oh my god, that's so tragic. But if you targeted even like this low, these lows anyway. But this was a huge trade. It moved a lot of points. So yeah, that's basically it. Again, obviously I didn't do that. I just got my piece of the pie and got out. And my entry was here, targeting the unfilled 30-minute with the low resistance building up to it. With 10 a.m. mainly just generating liquidity, and then 10:30 candle opens higher, SMT inside of a daily fair value gap, A plus structure lower to take shorts and target A plus low resistance liquidity, stop hunt, everything was there. So I just felt like a bit of a dickhead anyway if I didn't take this. Like this was just looking abundantly obvious to me, and I didn't even need an inversion here. The CISD was completely fine, and so yeah. That's basically my trade for the day. I ended up making around $500 today, and I have now 0 winning days remaining. So I'm technically eligible to take a payout, but I can't because my account's sitting at break even. So yeah, once we build this account into a little bit of a profit, maybe like $1,000 or whatever it may be, or maybe 1.5, whatever it may be, then we are just going to be taking a payout then, because we are already eligible. We already have 5 winning days on this account, so we're just going to be trading the exact same way I always have been, slow and steady, nothing rushed. It's all good, and yeah, that's going to be it for today's recap, guys. If you have any questions, leave it in the comments below. If you ended up taking a loss today, like losing on that 9:30 Judas, or if you ended up taking something different today, hitting TP or got break even, leave that in the comments below. I'm always interested to see what other people are taking. And if you have any questions for me personally, my Instagram, Discord, and TikTok will be in the bio of this video. You guys can go check them out. I'm going to be documenting my entire journey to profitability. And yeah, I guess I stayed patient today, waited for the ideal setup, and I was rewarded for doing so. And just stuck to my conviction. And that's pretty much it. So I'm going to catch you guys in the next trade recap, which will be tomorrow. So except for that, hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and peace out.